Hey everyone, welcome to another exciting episode of Uncolonized Podcast. You can hear my dog in the back. She's a beagle. She can't help it. This week, we sat down with Chonilla Network Podcast, or the Chonilla Podcast, Clove Roy and Sherley Joseph, and we talked about interracial relationships and more. It's a long one, but it's a good one. It's a fun one. Right. I just want to mention that we're currently on the Chonilla Network, so you can go find us at chonilla.com/Uncolonized Podcast or Uncolonized. Yeah, we'll be there. That'll be our new home very soon. What else can I tell you? You can still find us on Patreon at patreon.com/The Uncolonized. $5 a month. You can get 8 episodes. 8 episodes. That's 8 episodes a month. That's 2 episodes a week. $1.25 for 2 episodes a week. I mean, come on. I'm trying to hard sell, and I don't know why I'm doing that. Okay. Without further ado, here we go. Oh, by the way, you can follow us on Twitter at Uncolonized Podcast, on Instagram at the Uncolonized Pod, and on Facebook at Uncolonized Podcast. Without further ado, here we go. We're sitting down with Chonilla. Here we go. Welcome to Uncolonized Podcast. I'm Gavin Stephens. Each week, I'm joined by my friend bdotblack to have a conversation about race, politics, pop culture, all from a Canadian perspective. It's a cathartic, no-holds-barred conversation between two friends. It's like being in the barbershop, but we can't cut hair.
Yes.
All right, man. I just want to jump into it and start with. It's a pleasure to have you guys on the podcast. I've been a fan of the podcast ever since you started. Ever since I discovered you. And I really love how you guys made it like interracial relationship is part of a major theme for the podcast. Mm-hmm. So, and I remember, like, if I was on that podcast, the kind of questions I would love, or the kind of discussion I would love to have with these folks. And the first topic that came to mind right now, and Gavin, feel free to jump in, if you want to. I call it my biggest fear. This is confession mode, right? My biggest fear of interracial dating. No, okay. And I say this because, have you guys seen the movie Guess Who's Coming Home with Sidney Poitier? I know it's really old then.
Yeah.
The Sidney
Guess
Poitier.
Who's Coming to Dinner.
Guess Who's Coming to Dinner? Yeah, Guess Who's Coming to Dinner? Right.
Yes.
So I never articulated those feelings because I didn't want to come off like the father in that movie. I mean, B, you're just being a bigot and things like that, right? But so I'm gonna say it with you guys and tell me what you think. All right? You guys familiar with the Patrick Patterson story? The LA Clipper player who went on Instagram and then praised his wife, put on his his wife is white, and I guess he praised his wife online, and then some dude, this is the internet, people can't let you be happy, comes back to him and says some shit along the line of, hey, I'm gonna paraphrase, but he said, bro, if you weren't a famous basketball player, you would have never gotten with that white woman.
Oh my God.
Can't be happy. But here's the thing. This is a black dude attacking him like that. So naturally, like any man, being attacked, especially his significant other, he defends himself. The problem is, in the process of defending himself, he said something along the line that made it sound like he was saying that, I'd rather be with my wife than an ugly bulldog like yours, some shit like that. But it came off like he was saying that black women are bulldogs.
Oh boy.
Did he say black women are bulldogs?
No, he said, so I ought to accept a bulldog and act like I'm proud of my life and preach preserve. Oh no, wait, no, I'll get what he said. Sorry. I think
I'm not sure, now that hearing it in the context of what you're saying, I'm not sure. Was he saying that black women are bulldogs? I'm not trying to make an excuse for him. I'm just because you're making it sound like he went after his wife.
Who, the first guy or the second guy? Oh yeah, I made it sound okay.
Patrick Beverly went after this guy's wife.
So in his
called her a bulldog.
In his apology, at the end, he ended up doing this huge apology, and in the end, he clarifies, "Look, I realize two wrongs don't make it right. But what I was trying to diss the man's wife, not all black women. Like that bulldog thing was me attacking his wife, and I realized
sometimes you step into words and stuff, and you really think you step into racism or misogyny or whatever accidentally. So it's not really an excuse.
No, in his apology, I'm not saying, because if you Google Patrick Patterson's apology, there's a lot of fuck that nigga, whatever. A lot of he could keep his apology. So I want to be clear. I'm not saying whether you should accept or accept or reject his apology. But what I am talking about is the man defending himself. Do you know what I mean? Like
what do you mean?
In a sense, so the one example I remember telling you, Gavin, is one day you're walking with your wife, and God forbid you made the mistake of crossing a bunch of black Israelites. Okay? And then they start,
those guys.
And then they start talking shit about your girl. They start talking shit about you. You know what I mean? Or your relationship, right?
Yeah.
What do? Walk away or?
Well, I'm 45 years old, so I wouldn't give a shit and keep it moving. Like, I'm an adult. Like, I'm not gonna fight people.
You know what I mean?
Stupid ass shit.
But you really
defend myself against guys that dress like the black Israelites? That's pointless.
But
I don't know.
But it's more the war. I call it the war of public relations. But
then you're falling into a trap, and now you're like, what are you fighting? Why get into anything? Like, you're justifying their comment, and it doesn't make any sense. That's me.
It doesn't make sense. I don't know. You guys want to win?
You're stepping into toxic masculinity, really. Like, you're
yes. I think that's okay. So part of that fear does come from the whole toxic masculinity, because man, these guys are disrespecting your woman. You got to stand up.
Yeah, but sorry.
No.
I say, what did the original tweet say?
Hold on. Shirley, you got it, or?
I think so. He shared. So he tweeted a picture of him and his wife. In all the world, there is no heart for me like you. I'm zooming in. There's no love for you like mine. Something like happy anniversary.
Mm-hmm.
And then somebody wrote back to him and said, but it's not. Wait, then it's so true if never made it to. Oh yeah, true. If I never made it to the NBA, so I guess somebody said something along the lines to the whole but if you weren't in the NBA or white wife or whatever, and then he said, true. If I never made it to the NBA, I wouldn't have never met her while playing for Toronto. But why does it matter? Love is love at the end of the day.
Right.
And then the person wrote back, but it's not that. It's not that, bro. I guess you grew up loving our women. Why wait till you get some real money for your perspective? And even if you wasn't in the NBA, worked at a Walmart in Toronto, you wouldn't have stand a chance, bro. Yada.
Okay, but what was the initial response tweet that was aimed at his wife?
Well, it wasn't aimed at his wife. It was just him sharing on his Instagram happy anniversary to his wife.
Right, and then somebody responded with some trash.
He responded with how you wouldn't if it wasn't for the NBA, you wouldn't be with that lady. And then he responds. It's his response where he targets.
Yeah, but it sounds like that initial tweet saying you wouldn't be with her is just projecting their own value they've placed on white women.
This is what I'm saying. I agree with you 100%. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it feels like a lot of exploitation. It feels like this person's like a product.
Yeah. Yeah. But I can see myself falling for the okie doke, you know what I mean? That's no, I love you know what I mean? I'm gonna say something stupid, but I love talking to intelligent people, you know what I mean? Articulate, because because you see through the bullshit, which is what the podcast is all about. But well said. Well, by the way, Shirley, thank you for stepping in like that, because I read at a 6th grade level, and
no, you don't. You don't.
Oh my God!
Why would you say that?
No, I'm glad you did. No. All right. What is it? Okay, so Patrick Patterson responded to a
But no, you're not a 6th grade level. Take that back. Who would your mama?
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This would be of rejecting the English language. You know what I mean? Just the colonizers.
Dude, you know
language.
2 languages. You know 2 languages. Yeah. I know 1.
I know.
Exactly. It's a struggle. I totally feel you, because as bilingual people, it's totally normal that we go through that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You know how difficult the English language is? You know 2 languages.
Let alone, what's the other language? You know, French?
French, yeah.
Yeah, and French is even harder than English.
Oh,
so you're constantly doing, translation, and then constantly translating as you're trying to talk. It's a thing.
No.
Yeah, you guys put the genders on words and stuff. That doesn't make sense to me. Like, this
I
is
know.
masculine and feminine, and you got to memorize that. Forget it.
That.
It's a skill set. No, it's a running joke of mine. It's like, anytime I make a mistake in one language, then I bring up the fact that fuck the French language, or fuck the English language. Anyways, it's a habit. I'll go with it. All right.
You know what, B? I kind of understand where you're coming from, where you'd be like, your initial reaction is like, fuck you, blah, 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 and like kind of defend yourself against someone that attacking your wife or whatever. I get the initial reaction, because it's kind of, you want to defend that person. Like, it's just like, what the fuck? And then you're like, oh, I guess there's an idea that the idea that you might come off weak, that you didn't defend your woman, but at the same time, I just think you're just falling into a trap of like, why am I putting this person's opinion anywhere? Like it doesn't. Like, who are you?
So you guys, in your experience, you've never been in a situation where people called you out loud, because of what they projected their insecurity, whatever, their bullshit on you and it's like that.
The best one, but that happened a while ago, and that's probably one of the last ones and stupidest, and I just couldn't believe this person. Remember, Clove, we were in the bus. We were in the city bus in Toronto. I think we just started dating. We were on maybe on our second or third year. Yeah, and this dude is like acting kind of like he's bothered, but not knowing what he's bothered about.
He's physically moving like he's frustrated.
Physically walking back and forth a little bit, because I remember getting in on the bus, you and I getting on the bus. I remember seeing the guy sitting at the back with a young lady. They're both young, like we're in our 20s. They look like they're around their 20s too. And then as we walk in, we sat like on the 2-seater, the very last 2-seater of a bus, and they're at the back, right? But he's pacing, or there's like an air on his face. And then so we're just sitting, minding our business. And this dude, I can't even remember till this day, said what he said. But it was along the lines of, was he talking to me or both of us? Was he kind of saying it to me?
He didn't even address us. He took his girlfriend and sat in front of us in another 2-seater. And he just kept acting like agitated and frustrated. And she was like saying to him, like, it's okay, just calm down, it's okay. And he was all like, no, this shit ain't right, man. It just ain't right.
Oh, it's a black dude.
That's the funny thing. He's a black guy, and the girl he's with was white.
Of course.
But here comes me, Clove, me being a black woman, Clove being a white man. If y'all don't know us, just give you context of the whole thing.
All right.
He was really hot and bothered, and I think he stepped out. Him and his girl, well, whoever, if it's, I don't know, his girlfriend, but he stepped out. I think he was trying to shade Clove or trying to say something directly, but indirectly at the same time towards us.
Yeah, he totally was. And and when he would say something that was just like clearly like about us, like there's no mistaking it, she would turn around and be like saying to us like really softly, like, I'm so sorry.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Jeez.
I had to keep it cool because, you know.
I'm a big dummy. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
So Clove, this was pre-ally Clove. So he had no idea
What's happening.
And I can't even try to explain like Clove, the layers is really fucked
but
up.
it's still shocking. It's still a shocking thing to be on a bus and someone doing this shit out of the blue. Like it's still it's still a shocking thing.
Hey man.
Yeah,
Right.
And from my perspective, I was like, what the fuck's this guy's fucking problem?
Yeah. It's
But
crazy.
Right, but from my perspective, I was like, this motherfucker right here needs to fucking shut up because you don't want me to read you right now.
Right.
Because I'll tell you what I'm thinking. But at the same time, Clove could, again, pre-ally Clove. So how do you explain to someone, and I love you so much, honey, that you're now post-ally, like your allyship. But I was debating. I was like, if I call out this dude, because what I wanted to say is, why are you, like, what I really want to say, like, motherfucker, why are you acting like this, okay? You with your white woman and you're judging me? Get the fuck out of here.
You see that? You just did a Patrick Patterson.
So, like,
did it? I just in the situation.
So in Clove's perspective, it'd be like, kind of like you yelling at a ghost. It'd be like you yelling at this guy. He doesn't understand what's going on, and you going, what the fuck? And then he'd just be like, why are you freaking out for? What's going on?
Yeah. Afterwards, exactly.
Exactly. So I had to really think about this. Do I react? Because Clove won't look at it. Clove will probably see it like, why'd you go at him like that? You know what I mean? Or me questioning, is Clove gonna have my back? Because I don't know, because he'll have my back for sure, but he'd be confused of what he has my back on because he don't know. You know, like fully. And it's like, how do I explain to Clove, like, no, this is really fucked up. This dude is acting up because really he's having some inner feelings of his own about him dating this white girl, and he's using us like we're of that reminder of that. By looking
you know what I think? I think he's projecting his insecurity of his masculinity onto you.
And also the insecurity of being in an interracial relationship with this girl at the same time.
It's weird because it's a black man who's like, why are you with my women?
Right.
Like, that's what it is. And it's like the fact that you're with his women or his woman is like kind of shitting on his masculinity as a black man. But he's also he's in a relationship with, like, the hypocrisy of the whole thing. It's like it's so much cognitive dissonance. It's like it's just wow. That's why we need like more mental health shit in the black community. Like some sort of, like, I don't even mean this as a joke. We need like some sort of like to deal with these kind of feelings and these ideas that just like, so we could talk about it. I think
there's a whole ad campaign out here in Toronto that on the buses, like in the bus shelters, and it talks about how the need for mental health for black folks, and it's titled like 400 years of slavery, generational mental health. It was just like, whoa.
Oh, you saw that
absolutely.
You saw that in Toronto?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
I can send you a picture of it.
Yeah. Couldn't have that in Ottawa. Like, you'd freak people out.
white people in like interracial relationships with a black person they have to do a lot of work, and especially if you have kids. When you have kids, like, oh my god, I feel sorry for kids. When I was telling B a couple episodes ago, I know someone who, after that Don Cherry stuff, they have black kids, and the father's not in the picture, but they have black kids, and she was like, oh, that's not racist. And I'm like, I feel sorry for these kids. He's got no one to turn to when shit starts happening, and shit's gonna happen.
Yep.
Gotcha. Yeah.
They're not gonna be prepared.
Right. They're gonna grow up feeling crazy.
Hey, true story. So one show that I did, of course, in Ottawa, and I start out where I shout out, black people in the audience. And the joke is that, there was only one black person in the audience, right? So I said, I'd like to shout out to, my sister up front. And, this girl responds. No, I said the one black girl in the audience. And the girl responds to me. She goes, what? I'm not black. I'm like, if you looked at her, I'm like, yo, man, you look like you have the same credit score as I do. Don't fuck with me. That's terrible, man. I'm sorry. Sorry, Gavin, man. All right, man. Okay. I'm saying. But my point is, I've known people who because one of their parent was white and the other parent wasn't in the picture. So as a result, they felt like if I need to acknowledge. Like they felt like it'd be by being, I'm guessing here, right? This might not be the reality, but I'm thinking that she might be in a situation where if I call myself black, I'm disrespecting the human being who actually took care of me, kind of thing like that there, while not acknowledging the reality of who this person is. It's not the first time that I've met someone like that. That's what I'm trying to say. A black person.
Is it? But sorry.
Yeah, a black person or a mixed race person. Who you could tell they're black or looks black, and they'll tell you, no, I'm not. I'm Kabla Asian or whatever. I'm Tiger Woods.
Is it fair to like accept their like biracialness? Is it like, or because like I don't know. Like I'm biracial, but I identify as black. I identify by the way I'm categorized or how I feel. But like, if they're like, I'm biracial, is that fair to accept them as that?
I mean, I would say yes, based on how they feel that they identify themselves. I do find, speaking to our son lately and, going on the internet, like, one of the things I like to cover a lot on the Chonilla Facebook page is interracial couples and people who are biracial or mixed or identify as mixed. Is I tend to find the younger generation are more and more really, there's a sense of taking ownership of no longer like, being called by, just because you have a certain percentage of black, then you're black. And I find like that younger generation are more and more calling themselves mixed and really want to embrace both sides. Gotcha. It's almost like they want to kind of change or shift things a little bit by saying like, you're not going to force me by your old laws of the paper bag law, the brown paper bag ideas, or the fact that you have X amount of percentage in your DNA that you're black. So there's this sense of like, kind of like, it's almost like a fuck you. Like I'm going to identify and I'm going to take both sides and you deal with it, because what I really am.
I get it. Right. Agreed. Okay. I hear that. But for the sake of my joke, I'm just saying she could have played along. You know what I mean? Instead of fuck, I'm not black. Fuck that. Oh my God.
Bitch, come on, man.
I can only go from here to there. I can't skirt around this joke, so you better answer it properly. Like, change your whole life. I need this punchline. Just like, good for you, B. Good for being open-minded. That's the main thing. That's what we talk about on this podcast.
I figured you guys would take your side. All right, fine.
For the sake of my joke. My dad does this thing about like about interracial relationships. He thinks that's going to end racism, and I always like fight with him. I'm like, that's not going to end racism. But there is a that's a real thought process with people. Like once we start mixing, racism's gonna be done.
Once we have a black president, racism's gonna be done.
It's gonna be over.
No, the only way racism is going, I think that's my opinion, is gonna go is when the people who created it takes responsibilities of looking at it, understanding it, why was it created, and how do we eradicate it? And for the most part, it's the status quo, which happens to be, what is the status quo? White people. That's how it's going to go away. It's not on the hands of other people. We didn't create racism. They did. They're generations and generations and generations of, they're the one who created a system in order for their culture to thrive as a human race, and within the, not as a human race, let me rephrase that, within the human race, you know? And so if you're going to create systems and do things, and in order for your culture, which is the culture of whiteness, white people, to thrive, and you created the system, which is racism, that's the only way it's going to go away, is when they look at it, understand it, and do the work to eradicate it. That's the only way it's going to go.
It's very much like kind of, from what I've been reading, it's very much like a Canadian a kind of ideal utopia where like everyone's mixed. Like we like to portray ourselves as a very open society. Like we're very inclusive and diverse. Right. But I mean, we really know that's like a couple of cities in Canada. That's like 2 cities in Canada.
Word up, man.
So like I was reading this article about like how they did a census in 2011, and it was 4.6% of Canadians were in mixed unions. But what my first question about this idea of well, I don't know if it was a question, but my first point about how my dad said like, once everyone mixed, it's gonna end racism. They don't talk about the divorce rate amongst mixed, and that's another point. It's like there's a lot of pressure in terms of the mixed union to be like, oh, this is the beautiful utopia. You see it in commercials. This is the beautiful utopia we live in. But there's also not the idea of the divorce rate. And I was reading this article. Sorry, this is long-winded, but I was reading this article about this woman who got divorced from her partner because he was a white guy and he couldn't understand, he wouldn't accept her culture. And that's not talked about.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's common as fuck, yeah.
That is very common. That is very common. You know, when we used to, you know, when we're back at doing the show again, and one of the segments in our older episodes is we would read stories of Chonilla couples and, you know, interracial couples, that's how we call them, how they met. And the number one things is like, it always comes up for the most part. Oh, we love each other. We don't see color, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So, and I'm like, okay, but you know, when you have kids, like these kind of issues will come up. How are you gonna handle it? How long can you pretend that you're not seeing what you're seeing? You know what I mean? Like,
absolutely.
And not acknowledging what you're seeing, you know? Because I go ahead, Clove.
No, I was just gonna say, and you know, I guess there's like some people who just are so not ready to have that conversation that any attempt would just be like, you know, triggering. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like trying to talk to some white guy who completely believes that he's solved racism because he married a black woman, and he's convinced of that. You know, you're not going to be able to tell him about his privilege. It's so layered. It's so like
so layered.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Perfect example of that. I'm going to use us as an example, but in our early stage, pre-ally Clove. I was just saying that.
First time she said that.
It's like he had a different hat at that time. He would wear a different hat, and now he's Yeah,
and that hat was way more like what you see now when people identify as like centrist.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying.
Hey, real
got
quick.
That leather strap in the back.
Hey, real quick, I'm not mad at, you know, pre-ally Clove, because, you know, I had my Hotep phase. That black guy you were talking about, I probably know him, so I'm like cringing at this conversation. So yeah, growth. The point is, we all grown. That's what I'm trying to get at. We've all grown.
We all came from somewhere.
That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
Dude, I had a pre-Hotep face.
Did you?
Oh yeah, I hated. Oh man, I mean, growing up in Montreal, the way I grew up, I dealt with racism for a very long
Not Montreal. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I know, right?
Not those cops out there. And then they seem like wonderful police officers.
French Canadians, what the fuck?
Yeah, the French Canadians seem like. I'm sorry. Continue.
No, but so the way growing up in Montreal, I think it has to do with exposure and hindsight when I think about it. Like my parents from grade from kindergarten all the way up to around grade 7, I went to a private school. So, and it's a lot. It's an environment of kids with lots of privilege and predominantly white. So I was exposed to a lot of racism, not just from students, but teachers as well. Yep. But that's not even like that. So I feel it's even worse when the class is higher. But overall, yes, like we joke, but it's true. Like Montreal and in Quebec, Texas, because just so the reason I say that is because Quebec is like the Texas of Canada. Okay,
I said I said the South. I said the South of Canada, but yeah. Sorry again.
I go to New Brunswick, and that's how I feel. Like when I'm in New Brunswick, I'm like I see NASCARs, and like it's a lot of like I'm not even joking, NASCAR stuff, and like, and I'm like, this feels like the South.
Ding ding ding.
Oh, I get it. I get it. Yeah.
Brunswick is more like the Louisiana.
Yes, exactly. It is exactly that. A lot of rat tails. You know what I mean? Like, it's the rat tail capital of Canada. That's what it is.
Hold on. No disrespect, but keep going.
They're not listening, B. They're not here listening to this.
Hey, man.
I also think like if you're in an interracial relationship and you can't talk about your experiences honestly, right? Like then you're not being honest. Like you're just not being honest with the person that you're with.
Yeah, and your partner is not accepting of your authentic self.
Yes.
Right. That's okay. That's like a sub into the list of interracial dating, but that's pretty much any relationship in the sense that I had a big fear of being with a person, a white woman, that I would treat like my coworkers. So all that black shit, I keep it to myself, and I just present the polished side of myself, you know. And
Dude,
how can
real.
you?
Eh?
That's real. That is real. What you're saying, though. I have seen both sides. Whether it's like I have seen interracial couples, let alone that has to cater to the sensitivity, the fragility of their partners, especially if they are white. And kind of code switch a little bit within their relationship, and that's so sad.
When my wife is like actually being with my wife, she's white, and it helped me understand women a lot better too, like to understand that, to accept her perspective, because there was a time where I was like, come on, there's no pay gap and all that shit, and there was, and then you start realizing that there's a world that they live in. As a woman, you would live in a different world. Like my wife, my sister would hides weapons around the house when she lived by herself, and it sounds very funny. Like I would laugh at that, but you realize based on statistics, as a black woman, there's a good chance, or there is a higher chance of her being harmed in her home. So she's protecting herself. And like I just. Like that's a world I don't understand, that I had to learn to understand, and I don't want to gaslight her in her world and what how she feels.
Right. Like, and this is where I was going to go with the example is that, like for example, in the early stage of our relationship, I remember we would go in rooms, like let's just say we go to a restaurant, right, in a really kind of poshy, maybe in a neighborhood that's predominantly where it's like a lot of white folks lives in that neighborhood. So the restaurant is full of white people. And before Clove would just, I wanted to ask something, I would tell Clove, like, Clove, can you just go ask the waiter or whatever? And he would always like look at me like, I don't understand. Like, why don't you do it? Just go do it. You know what I mean? And it's like, no, I don't want to do it because I'm a black woman and I know white people in this kind of setting and environment, and they're going to either gaslight me, ignore me. I just don't want to be triggered with their microaggression. How do you explain that to someone who doesn't understand or hasn't taken the time to understand that? You know
While
what
you're
I mean?
at a restaurant.
Right. So I remember all the time I would ask Clove, and he's like, just go ask. I don't get it. Like, just go. Like, just ask. Like, it's not a big deal. And da 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 da. Now it's like he understands it, but at the time, and it's so funny. I was young too, and I didn't have the language that we have today as well to express and say, no, it's because I don't want to go through any form of microaggression. I don't want to be ignored. I don't want to be like, I'm going to ask you something. They see you behind me and they're completely going to ghost me and just answer the question to you. Do you know how many times that has happened where it's like I'm a ghost and they just see Clove and they completely ignore me? And as much as like we kind of say, okay, brush it off, whatever, it does. There's some days where it's like, it's one of those days where you're like, no, I'm done. Like, I can't.
No, that shit pisses me off every time. I mean, it probably happens to you way more than me, but I'll get like where I'm walking my dog and I have a white guy tell me like how to walk my dog, like some stranger. And it's like, it's that white, just that, who the fuck are you to tell me that I'm doing something wrong? You don't even know me.
Yeah, and they come at it with such officiousness, you know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, do you find like...
Hey, what you want to do here is, come on.
But my in bringing this up is that those are the things that if you don't have these discussion in an interracial relationship, and it just keeps adding up and it keeps happening, and then you're like, I don't know why our relationship is the way it is. So the pressures of not just within the relationship, but those kind of things, sometimes society and how you maneuver within society, you want to make sure you have a partner that fully has your back and has a fully understanding that the world is that we live today are going to treat Clove and me completely differently, because he's a white man and because I'm a black woman. And if both have an understanding of seeing that and knowing how to deal with that, it just helps on alleviating those kind of social pressures on your relationship. I refuse to believe that you're not going to tell me if you don't look at it. That does add in your relationship if you don't look at it.
Word up. Hey, okay, first I want to say thanks everyone. I was a little worried that we weren't going to get through these topics. I'm going to jump to the second one. And I was worried that we're just going to have dead air on this one. But thank you. Second, okay, so this new topic now. You it's so lately I've been feeling like I've been noticing, like when you notice protests involving like, black people issues or indigenous issues. By the way, I want to send solidarity to the was it wet oh my God, help me out here. Wet Sutton.
Wet Sweatin'.
What? Shit. There I go again. Wet Sweatin'. Yeah. Okay. With the folks, protesting these pipelines, and if you notice on camera, it's starting to get diverse. You know what I mean? Like back in the old days, it'd be like an indigenous problem, and now you're gonna see people, white people are getting involved or joining the protests and all kinds of things. Seeing people of color, white people get involved in other people's struggle has caused me to have like a Malcolm X post-Mecca moment. You know what I mean? Remember when Malcolm went to Mecca and he goes, "Damn, shit. Okay, I guess these white folks are cool and shit like that."
Well, I think they're affected just as much as everyone else with this stuff, and I think when you're seeing white people protest that kind of stuff, I mean, there is an environmental issue in it, but it's also the collapse of neoliberalism. It's the collapse of what our system can't handle, like the environment or the economy, and we're at a point now where people are becoming more aware of how these systems are connected,
right,
and how we more and more people are aware of how it's fucking them up in their lives. So they're gonna sit back and accept, what an inevitable end, or they're going to fight. That's what you're seeing is people are being affected just as much. It's not just a benevolent which I think there is that, but I think it's also I'm affected by this land being taken over by basically the government and corporations. It's just that's what we're seeing.
No, but what I'm getting at is I grew up in a time where black people's problems were black people's problems. indigenous problem or indigenous problem, Latino problems.
That's what I'm saying. Things weren't at this point. We weren't at a point where like, half the planet's on fire, half the planet's flooded. We're not at a point where jobs are shit. We're at a breaking point now.
All right, yeah, okay.
It's why Bernie Sanders is the front runner right now, because that country is like, we need a change.
Hey, bro, I'm gonna help you. Help me out with this joke here, man.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I didn't know you're going into a joke. I'm sorry.
I was going. Okay. What I'm saying is, so I'm asking you three, right? Like I'm saying, if Malcolm X was single, came back from Mecca and had jungle fever, right? How would you advise him to dating white women? For one, does he have to change his vocabulary and like saying shit like the white man's the devil? Is that would you like talk him against saying shit like that, or could he still have that kind of vocabulary? Am I alone?
I think I'm going to jump in. Mm-hmm. I think if she understood, what he was trying to get at, then he wouldn't have to change shit.
Mm. Okay, so he shouldn't. Yep. He shouldn't have to accommodate. Her
fragility.
Her fragility. Yes.
No.
Okay. This question actually came from a friend of mine. He was telling me how he met this girl on Tinder, and okay, this is a black guy. He met this white woman, and I could tell that she's on that conscious tip. I don't like using the word woke, but she was like socially active. Like, she's probably protesting the pipeline right now. And she asked him a question. I forget what the question was, but the point of the question was to figure out whether you were, on that conscious tip or not. It was a kind of question that you're either going to give me a stupid answer or you're going to give me something that I want to hear.
Was that the question? The Malcolm X question?
No. So that triggered me to if Malcolm X was trying to date, and I want to be clear, single Malcolm X were to start dating white women, but he came to you on how do I go about it? Okay, now I'm also assuming that he knows how to use Tinder. How would he? How would you advise him? Because he's gonna have questions. Like, for him, he just spent most of his life, hating white people, or not hating white people, but being
oppressed.
Yeah, exactly. So now for him
feeling
to be
oppression, yeah,
feeling oppressed. But yeah, so now that if I were to start dating white women, a white woman, what advice would you have for me, for Malcolm X? Oh shit! Okay, I'm alone on this one.
I think what Clove said is bang on. I mean, I would say just continue to be who you are. Mm. Like, do not code switch or change what you're saying. Uh-huh. Keep saying what you're saying, and if this white woman wants to be with you, she'll be with you. It's a great way to weed out.
If all she has to do is check her feelings for the cause, come on.
That's all she got to do? Yeah.
I'd say stay away from ballrooms, right? Like, I mean, like, if Malcolm X, if I can go back, am I going back in time?
No, it's a confusing. Okay, you know what?
Or is he still alive?
In this example, I'm Malcolm X. That's what I'm trying to say. So
this is Malcolm X coming back from Mecca.
Uh-huh. So I'm back in time. So I'm there in time.
Okay, you know what? I'm going to simplify.
But do I have the knowledge of me now?
Okay, yeah, okay. All right. Instead of Malcolm X, let's pretend I'm Malcolm X in this story, right?
No, I'm not trying to take apart your premise. I'm trying to figure out where I am in the premise. Am I time traveling or am I living at that time?
In your case, you'd be time traveling, but it's kind of weird.
All right, stay away from ballrooms. Like, do all your speeches from now on out in public.
Gavin's just like, just don't fuck with white women.
No, you can fuck with white women. I'm just saying.
Back then.
Yeah, you can fuck with white women. I'm just saying you don't want to go to ballrooms because I have some information for you. Don't go to ballrooms. Don't go to ballrooms. It's not your thing. Not anymore. I want to keep you alive, my friend.
Yeah, that's the no-fly zone.
That's it. You're out of ballrooms. If it says ballroom in the title, walk away. Bingo halls, gymnasiums, fine. Man. Clear to go.
There will be no second chance.
Exactly.
But my my initial go-to, for real though, because when you're putting it in context, Malcolm X comes back from Mecca. He sees Mecca is very multicultural and like all of that. Yeah. And then now he's like, you know what? I'm still single. I think I met this woman and she's a white woman. My first initial thing would be like, don't do it.
Oh,
I didn't want to say anything, Shirley, but I kind of agree with you. But
what am I missing?
I didn't want to be the one.
What am I missing?
I'll be the one that was my first instinct. Like the whole, if I'm looking at it in a 360 degrees, like Nation of Islam, did all his speeches, goes to Mecca, sees it's beautiful and multicultural, still doing all this, still single, and then he's like, oh yeah, I'm thinking of dating this woman, she's a white woman. That would be my first go-to, is don't do it.
Don't do it. What?
It sounds like B wrote the like a sequel to Green Book. You inserted this white savior character into the Malcolm X story.
You're like, don't do it.
He meets a white woman and never gets shot.
I would be like, it's not your time. You have to take into consideration your past. I get it where you are in your present right now. Yeah.
Word.
And I don't want you to he'd be like, yeah, but I'm different. I'm be like, yeah, but you're Malcolm X. It's kind of complicated. You can't just look at the present, dude.
Where are you having this conversation? It sounds so open. You guys have been friends for years.
So hold on a second. Okay, so in this example, I'm talking about, okay, now this is why I might lose you guys on this one here, right? He meets the white version of Betty Shabazz. Okay, now how is that possible? That's a different, use your imagination, right?
This is a lot of use your imagination. The whole premise is it's
saying,
like Jurassic Park you've created.
Are we saying Hotep dudes, there's no coming back for Hotep dudes? Stay away from
if you met the white woman version of Betty Shabazz, I think I would, as a friend to Malcolm X, knowing again, Nation of Islam, we're gonna do. You know what I mean?
But he's leaving Nation of Islam. He's not. He's like, he's grown now. He's like, you know what I mean?
He's grown away from Nation of Islam.
Right.
He went to Mecca. Wow, it's beautiful and multicultural. I met the white version Betty Shabazz.
That's her nickname, by the way. That's her nickname. White version Betty Shabazz. That's what her friends refer to her as.
It's Betty Smith.
Continue.
I don't know, Betty
I didn't mean to jump in like that.
Right, and then he'd be like, Shirley, listen, I met the white version of Betty Shabazz, and I'm really considering to start a relationship. My answer would still be, I would say, dude, there's a time and there's a moment in history where you have to start thinking about the cause, and you're the cause. You represent. It's beyond you. It's more than you. So you have to make a decision. You know what I mean? He's gonna have a Prince Harry, Meghan Markle moment. Is it about the royal family, or is it about you?
Okay.
Because if it's about you, then you may have to step down doing what you're doing and just be with white version Betty Shabazz.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Then you may have to sacrifice this relationship and love each other as a distance and keep doing what you're doing for the cause. So what you gonna do? That would be my actual answer to Malcolm X.
Okay.
Here's my thing too. At that time, racism wasn't like how people understand. If you being an ally now, you understand racism on a different level than what they racism to them was like, oh, I need to treat black people like humans. That's what you know what I mean? It's like
right.
That's what racism was to them.
Stop using the N-word around them.
White people back then. So you'll never have the black Betty Shabazz, a white Betty Shabazz.
And if you did have the white version Betty Shabazz, that woman would probably say the same thing. She would understand the sacrifice. You know what? I love you. We love each other, but this is bigger than us.
Yeah.
Wow.
You know what I mean? True ally. True deep ally.
She
would have. You know?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, but Wow. It kind of sounds like you guys, woo. Okay, I might get in trouble in this, so I'm going to apologize in advance. But I kind of sounds like you guys are agreeing with Rush Limbaugh telling Mayor P, hey, bro, you ain't going to win that election with a boyfriend.
I agree.
There's Democrats.
I agree. I agree. But I don't agree because I think a gay person can't be president. I just think that America is not ready for anything other than a white man. America. Let's talk about America. It's America.
This is America. Right.
It is America.
Okay.
I really believe that. I think like when Hillary came, I think there was a huge backlash. I think after Obama, there was a giant, like after Obama, they got Trump. That was their answer to Obama. Right. It was Trump.
Yeah.
I'm gonna ask Clove. You got thoughts on this one? I'm not trying to put you on the spot. I'm just saying. I'm really asking. Okay, I went with Malcolm X. I get it for image.
I mean, I personally said that I didn't think that America was ready for a black president.
Yeah, I said that too. I said that.
Were they? Were they though? They got one.
Technically,
he was the best candidate. He was like so perfect.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
As a president, and then what happened afterward?
All the planets had to align. Yeah.
Right.
And what happened afterward?
Yeah. Perfect minus that tendency.
I don't think I think it, like even them talking about like when he was running, they were like, oh, but he's Muslim. I'm like, who cares? Like none of the like to me as a person, none of that matters. It's what your policies are. But knowing America, I don't know, man. They're still debating like abortion. Like that's just still a debate up there. Like we don't have that. Like I mean, we do have the debate here, but it's a strong debate. Religion is huge in their politics. Like this is a backwards country. No offense to Americans who are listening, but you do live in like a medieval times. You do live in like a Renaissance fair for a country. Yeah, it is.
I think the government has been infiltrated by right-wing Christians.
Yep. Absolutely, 100%. That's not even hyperbole. That's 100%.
Okay. Okay. You know what? Let me coming back to the Malcolm X thing. So take away Malcolm X, but you guys aren't saying that it's not possible for someone who's pro-black to be with a white person. We're not saying that,
I don't
right?
think so.
We're not saying that, right?
To be with a white person. It is not impossible.
Yeah. Okay. I know many especially in the States, who are.
Okay, but Malcolm X can't do it. That's what you're saying. That's what we're trying to say.
His message and who he represents and what he's done, like everything that he's done from the past to the present, and technically his present would be after coming back from Mecca. These are all things that he has to take into account if he would be in a relationship with a white woman. Right. So there's a sacrifice has to be made here. It's whether it's the cause or having a relationship with this woman.
If I saw Malcolm X with like a blonde white woman, I'm like, that's the CIA. That is FBI CIA bullshit right there.
Yeah. Maybe like Manchurian Candidate kind of brain.
Exactly. That's their new form of assassination. It's just like take them out by the balls, and then it's done.
Say the word.
That is a plant and a half. That is because Malcolm X was like I think people loved him because he was like so anti-white supremacy, like just like standing up to them at that time, like just getting in their face.
Yeah, he definitely embodied like much unheard voice. Yeah.
Sorry, sweetie, what did you say? I cut you off.
Oh no, I said he embodied a much unheard voice.
Right. Okay.
But
as far as it being different for Malcolm, I think it's because he comes with the layers of like, frontlining, an anti-oppression movement. I mean, that's
right. Now,
because when you are oppressed like this, there's moments where it's like, how much are we gonna like hold hands and walk on the bridge? Like we're being killed here, people.
Yeah, we've been holding hands.
Word up. I feel the need to apologize to any of my friends who might have gotten offended by that question. I mean, what the fuck?
Well, it's okay. I just said that a gay person can't be president, so I topped you. You're fine. In context, I meant in America. I think in Canada that can happen. I think most countries it can happen.
Right.
I just think America's not. They're backwards. That's all. Not all Americans either.
Yeah, most countries. I mean, you look at, there's so many countries where people are still, have to escape their country because they're gay, and you know. But you're right. It's funny because the other day I was telling Clove, like, do you know how many white people there is in the United States? I saw the number and it just puts so much in perspective for me. Like, I get why they say or operate or do what they do. Like 77.7% of the population is white. Do you know how many that is? That's approximately 245 million people in the United States are white.
Interesting.
Yeah, we did a episode about like the legalization of marijuana just before they legalized it here. And one of the things I researched doing research is that they couldn't make the black issue the main issue of legalizing marijuana because black issues in Congress usually get ignored. So they had to make it like the Cheech and Chong, like, hey, it's like that kind of thing. And and that's just marijuana. Like, you're talking about the president of the United States. It's like, I don't. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of white people there.
Yeah, there's a lot.
There's a lot.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. I got a last question here.
Hey everyone, that was part 1 of our Chonilla episode. It's been fun. This has been fun. But you can check out part 2 on our Patreon at patreon.com/theuncolonized. That's $5 a month. You get 8 episodes. So we continue the conversation there. We go for probably about 30 to 40 minutes more, and it's a good one. We really get in depth, and the subject's very interesting. So go there, check it out. That's patreon.com/theuncolonized.